and Deputy Michael McNamara. There are just a little over 5 minutes left.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clare, Chairman. I suppose I'd like to concur very much with what Deputy Donoghue said. I mean, it's something that I've spoken about before, directly to you, Minister, and across this chamber to you. And at a recent meeting with officials of Clare County Council, I have to say, very much on the line of what Deputy Donoghue said, I was very pleased to learn that the inspection regime was being stepped up in Clare. Clearly, Clare is not unlike anywhere else, and that quite a bit of the private rented accommodation is inadequate in the extreme. As somebody who sat as an adjudicator on the Private Residential Tenancies Board, while at times, of course, I was shocked by what I had seen, evidence of what tenants had done to properties. I was equally shocked by some of the properties which were being let to tenants, and in particular which were let to tenants under schemes funded by the Exchequer, often paid for by the HSE, when they were entirely inadequate. But I am glad that on the ground, not just in this august chamber where it's so easy to do things, but on the ground the inspection regime is being stepped up. I suppose on the ground, Deputy Maloney mentioned that we would very much like to see a greater number of houses being built by local authorities, and I think everybody would agree, whether on the left or the right or of this chamber, about that would be socially beneficial. But I wish to draw your attention, Minister, to the fact that there is housing stock which is in a state in Clare at the moment, which there isn't sufficient money to renovate and repair existing housing stock, which is lying idle. Not a lot, it has to be said, but some. And in these times of pressure on state resources, I think perhaps, Clare is rarely exceptional in any instance. It's been described as a bellwether constituency in some regards, and a bellwether county. It's one I know that you are very well acquainted with, Minister, but that housing stock, if monies could be made available, obviously it would be great if we could make monies available for building, but at the very least if we could make monies available for the repair and renovation of existing housing stock to ensure that people move into it. But I suppose I wanted to move on to another matter, and that is the great difficulty that housing arrears cause local authorities and their budgets, their financing. I am aware that your department, Minister, has sought to address that since you have taken up the position. And an amendment to the household budgeting scheme to provide for mandatory deduction of local authority rents was introduced in December last. This will help local authorities address their concerns regarding build-up of rental arrears. The mandatory provision provides local authorities with a strengthened power to help manage their tenancies, as when a provision is commenced, customers will have to obtain written permission from the housing authority prior to cancelling the household budget rent reduction. Of course, the requirement to enter into a household budget rent reduction scheme is nothing new, but the reality is that a lot of local authority tenants entered into it when they entered into their tenancy, but then just cancelled it and commenced building up arrears. They can no longer do that, hence from now on. But the difficulty still arises with existing tenancies, of which there are many, where there are considerable arrears. And we all appreciate that there are lots of people in local authority housing in considerable difficulty. But there are some people in local authority housing who take advantage of the situation. And of course that puts further pressure on the local authority, and indeed on other people who could be benefiting from local authority housing but aren't, because some people decide to, I'm trying to think of a parliamentary way to take advantage of the system. Now I've received, thank you very much, I've received various assurances from ministers on this issue, but I don't expect an update here and now today, Minister, on what will be done with regard to existing tenancies, but I would expect in the coming weeks that your department would be able to outline what will be done with regard to existing tenancies, existing arrears, and specifically whether a clause of being able to insert this household budget rent deduction scheme into existing tenancies, whether that is legally possible, and if so, under what legislation, under what provisions that could be done. Because I think something like that would be very useful, not just for Clare County Council, but all housing authorities across this state. Thank you, Chairman.